Another day of violent protests on Gaza's border with Israel. Next week, Palestinians will mark the 70th anniversary of what they call the catastrophe of Israel's independence. Many protesters say they have nothing to lose in risking death at the border. Norman Hamont reports from Gaza.
For 6 weeks, protests have raged on Gaza's border with Israel. At least 45 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli troops. Ahmed Abied is one of the
I'm waiting for them to announce that Israel is firing rockets into Syria.
He joined demonstrators at the border fence. He says he had one thing with him, a Palestinian flag.
And
I was planning to hang the flag
that
on the fence. The Israelis shot me in my legs. One bullet
Iranians
right
via
leg, and one
other
bullet in my left
organisations in close to the border are firing rockets into Israel.
That he and other protesters are trying to launch attacks across the border.
I only had the flag with me, no weapons at all. They're shooting at us from behind the wall.
Yeah, all right.
During the week, young Gazans come to watch as Israel prepares for the next clash.
Peaceful protests born out of frustration and hopelessness. Israel rejects that narrative and says these demonstrations have been tailor-made to fit the agenda of Hamas.
The organizers of the demonstration say that the object is to break through the Israeli border and flood Israel with Palestinians, basically to take Israel down.
One thing no one disputes, Gaza is an economic wreck. Largely blockaded by Israel and Egypt, many families now rely on food supplied by the United Nations to survive.
Of course we don't get enough of this flour. I don't get enough to feed all of my family.
In conditions like these, protesters such as Ahmed Abied say they have nothing to lose. He hopes he will recover in time so he can return.
It's taking the mainstream media in Australia almost into days now to admit there's a war going on.
Israel claims to have destroyed nearly all of Iran's military infrastructure in neighbouring Syria in response to rocket attacks by Iranian forces. Around 20 missiles were fired from Syria at Israeli military positions in the Golan Heights. The Israeli Prime Minister accused Iran of crossing a red line.
What red line? Okay, all right.
Israeli missiles rained down in Syria targeting Iranian military positions. It's the most serious confrontation yet between two bitter enemies and comes in response to a barrage of Iranian-fired rockets into the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights.
The Iranians are the aggressors. They are the ones who are building offensive military infrastructure inside Syria with the clear, outspoken goal of being able to menace and terrorize Israeli civilians.
Israel says Iran's Quds force fired 20 rockets into the Golan Heights, territory it captured from Syria in the 1967 war. All the rockets were intercepted before hitting their targets, but many Israelis spent the night in bomb
People
shelters.
also forget that in Palestine before World War II, only 5% of the population were Jews, and they took over the whole territory in 1948.
Army bases, but 3 people were killed and many wounded.
The strikes also destroyed a
I am not pro-Israeli and I'm not pro-Iranian, by the way.
Air Defense Department.
It's not the first time Israel has bombed military installations in Syria, but as Iran has strengthened its military presence,
I'm just warning about the war widening out to a world war.
Intensified. World leaders have called for restraint on both sides.
We see this as a very alarming development. We believe that all issues must be resolved through
This is just simply a screen capture, of course.
Days after the US decision to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, a decision Tehran has condemned, but Israel supports. Now that confrontation threatens to spill increasingly beyond Syria's borders. Anne Barker, ABC News.
At least 47 people have died in Kenya.